Shabbat Shalom. In his poem, Journey Home, Rabindranath Tagore writes, "The time that my journey takes is long, and the way of it long. I came out on the chariot of the first gleam of light and pursued my voyage through the wildernesses." This week, as we read Parashat Chukat Balak, we find the Israelites near the end of their very long journey through the wilderness. They are weak and they are weary, growing more despondent by the day. The journey has taken its toll on this people and on its leaders as well. Miriam and Aaron both take their final breaths in this parasha. And while Moses doesn't die, his dream of shepherding the flock into the promised land does. After Moses strikes the famous rock in Meribah, not once but twice, God punishes him, saying, "You shall not lead this congregation into the land I have given them." And with that, Moses' fate is sealed. He will never set foot into the promised land. It is not only a crushing defeat for Moses, but one must imagine for the Israelites as well. Moses has been their steadfast leader for nearly 4 decades. Now he too would soon be gone. It is unsurprising then to see the Israelites so broken and beaten down in this portion. For example, when they learn they must take a longer route to avoid the warring Edomites, we read, "Vatiksar nefesh ha'am," and their souls shortened. The image of a soul being shortened evokes such emptiness and despair. It signifies, notes Rashi, that one cannot bear it. The mind cannot bear it. The Israelites have become desperately hopeless and hopelessly desperate. Not quite knowing how to handle their anguish, the Israelites rail at Moses, saying, "If only we had perished when our brothers perished at the instance of Adonai. Why have you brought Adonai's congregation into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die there? Why did you make us leave Egypt to bring us to this wretched place, a place with no grain or figs or vines or pomegranates?" In truth, the words here belie the meaning. It isn't that the Israelites want to return to Egypt. It's that they want to be free of the desert, free of endless wandering, and situated in a place they can call home. For the life of a wandering exile is nothing if not perilous. The path is arduous, the landscape is punishing, and every day is yet another day when death might ensnare them. And still, despite the Israelites' myriad struggles, they ultimately press on, moving forward towards the promised land. The question is, why? Why does our people, despite the danger and discomfort, continue on this seemingly torturous road? Why do they, in light of their bitterest complaints, soldier ahead? And why do they sacrifice so much in order to make their way to the promised land? First, our ancestors wanted freedom. They wanted so badly to live without oppression, to worship without fear, and to sing the songs and speak the words of their foremothers and forefathers. So too, our ancestors wanted the opportunity for a better life. Though they complained in the wilderness, they had escaped a place far worse. In Egypt, they had been marked as slaves, second-class citizens who were dealt the blows and punches of a subjugated people. They lacked every dignity, longed for any shred of human pride. The promised land offered a vision of a sovereign life, an independent community, The land of milk and honey would give them a new start, a fresh beginning. Lastly, the promised land signified a place of infinite possibility. It was the place God had shown them, a place endowed with holiness. It was the land of their ancestors, a land replete with stories and folkways of the past. They would rebuild that chain into perpetuity, and they would, God willing, live in this land for generations to come. Our ancestors were sustained by this vision of the future. They pushed ahead through drought and disease, through pain and exhaustion, through death and loss to reach the place God had shown them. To be sure, they stopped at nothing and gave up everything in order to arrive at this promised land. As we look ahead to the 4th of July, I can't help but think of another professed promised land and the millions who've sacrificed so much to reach its shores. As Anja Jezierska, an immigrant author from the Russian Pale of Settlement, wrote in 1923, "Ah, America! From the other end of the earth where I came, America was a land of living hope, woven of dreams aflame with longing and desire. Choked for ages in the airless oppression of Russia, the promised land rose up, wings for my stifled spirit, sunlight burning through my darkness, freedom singing to me in my prison." Indeed, masses of people have literally risked life and limb, traversing mountains and valleys, deserts and oceans, highways and byways to reach our borders. They have traveled the most treacherous of paths, be they on foot or on rail, on boat or by car, risking theft, assault, violence, kidnapping, extortion, and malice at every single turn. Those who've taken their chances to flee have escaped regimes of oppression and subjugation, terror and war, to make their way here, to America. They too have come in search of safety and security, freedom, opportunity, and possibility, a new promised land. As Violeta Monteroso and her husband Candido Calderon, immigrants fleeing Guatemala, explained, going back to Guatemala was simply not an option, as their family was forced to leave after a gang threatened to murder the children if they didn't pay an outrageous bribe. "There is nobody that can protect us there," Monteroso said. "The first thing is to have security for them," she said of her kids. Danielle Gutierrez, a migrant in Tijuana, shares, "We're not looking for anything luxurious. All we really want is to give our kids a better education." Another migrant adds, "Why did I leave my country? Because of death threats and persecution." Our country still is that beacon of hope for the hopeless. It is still the emblem of safety and security for those who are imperiled by war, gangs, by violence, by poverty. That America continues to be the promised land for so many immigrants risking their lives, enduring hardship and crime and violence, is an honorific we cannot nor should not take lightly, for we are still seen across the world as a place of refuge, a place of hope and optimism and promise. The truth is, for countless souls, America really is that place of refuge, hope, optimism, and promise. It is that place replete with freedom and democracy, justice, and equality. And yet, we must also acknowledge that there are countless ways we are still falling short, especially with regards to our treatment of newcomers and immigrants, the very people projecting the very highest of values upon us. It goes without saying that far too many of our immigrants are subject to abuse, harassment, racism, and exploitation nearly every day of their lives. They often work in the most taxing and least desirable of environments and are frequently denied the most basic of protections in those workplaces. Children of immigrants are frequently denied full access to education, a right they are entitled to under the law. And fear of deportation overwhelms many immigrants' lives. There is no doubt that our status as an immigrant nation is an ever complicated one. But our standing as the promised land should keep us ever focused on the ideals underpinning these very complex conversations. In his book, A Promised Land, President Barack Obama writes, "I'm not yet ready to abandon the possibility of America, not just for the sake of future generations of Americans, but for all humankind." He continues, "And so the world watches America, the only great power in history made up of people from every corner of the planet, comprising every race and faith and cultural practice, to see if our experiment in democracy can work, to see if we can do what no other nation has done, to see if we can actually live up to the meaning of our creed." As we look ahead to Independence Day, let us be propelled by the raw hope so many immigrants carry within them and the sparkling vision of America so many hold in their hearts. With intention, determination, and perseverance, we can yet realize this vision. We can yet become better. We can yet change for the good. The dream of the promised land is there, right within our reach, if only we have the will to pursue it, and if only we have the courage to build it. Ken Yehiratzon. May it be so.